Hello and welcome to episode 102 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Drogan1701. With me is a master breeder of space rabbit, cat, stitch things, Greendragoon.
I thought we established that these were mutated Thomas cats.
That's as good as explanation as any, I gotta say.
Or Epo Heralds.
Epo Heralds. There you go. They serve the master Epo race. And we also have the man who is most likely of us to run afoul of Trendy's new Ben Left, Markhawkman.
Well,
I say most likely because you're the one of us who posts on the forums the most.
this is true.
You make good posts. So, I don't think you really will.
I think we're getting into guilt by proximity.
There you go. And our guest tonight, CaptPFDennis. Who has muted himself.
And possibly stepped away.
I was right, wasn't I? Or possibly stepped away to take a phone call. I believe we heard his phone go off right before the show. So we'll move along. We have some news. We have some fixes inbound, hopefully tomorrow. Patch notes for Holodeck have not quite been posted yet, but on Tribble went live last week. We have, resolved an issue where publishing would fail when trying to publish a project with the latest ESD map. So Zero's fix has gone through. That is excellent. And said also updated the ESD map so more of the geography displays in the map image. So we'll be able to see like the inside of where the space dock is. That area. That'll be good. Useful for those of us who want to build out there, like actually I have been doing.
So basically it's displaying an actual top-down image instead of the
Yes.
map that they use in the
So the
social
black
instance.
instead of the black space. So that is good news because that means I will be able to finish up my Iconian War mission because I had the last bit of it set in an Earth space dock type starbase.
I think I just get that fix for the crashes in the map preview image generator.
Yep.
We'll be set.
Well, we definitely know they know about it. If for no other reason than they got to see it on our 100th episode when our two devs joined us.
And we know Zero's been looking into it.
Yeah. I think we'll get a fix for that soon. I'm quite certain. So I asked Paul here tonight because we were talking in the ESD or the got to switch gears here. The Starbase UGC chat before, and he's got another 6-part possible group series he'd like to pitch for us tonight. So tell us about that, Paul.
I will if I'm being heard. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Oh, excellent. There we go. Yes, well, I've been checking in on the reviews every now and then for Purity. And every now and then I get one that says, when are you guys going to do another? And we really haven't done a lot. We've tried to start projects and they never actually come to fruition. So maybe we'll stick with what we've done before, So I wrote up another one. It's a 6-part series. It's very different from Purity. I don't want to say too much about it, but it has to do with the holographic rights. I don't know. I think I just. Oh, okay. I thought I just lost the call there for a second.
Nope. I was going to ask, are you?
No, we're just listening.
Yeah. No. So, you know what it is? I usually hear that hissing in the background, and it just completely disappeared. So somebody must have muted. Anyway. So yeah, I finished it up, and I did a character treatment for it. So, something we should talk about. And I just dropped it in the chat room about 15 minutes ago, so we really haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. But I imagine if it's something people want to do, then we'll pretty much set it up like we did for Purity. We'll get a call going and we'll start making plans. But it's nothing that'll be released right away. We'll probably need months to set it up just like Purity.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you already have some stuff written up as far as ideas go, we're starting ahead of the game from where we were last time.
Well, when we did the first call, I already had the majority of it written at the first, pitch meeting we had for Purity. And, there was a lot of setup. There was a lot of, talking about, scheduling.
Scheduling is a big part.
When each episode was going to have whatever their release date was going to be and who was going to get what. And, that took a little while. But I don't imagine that it would be out probably any sooner than, say, October.
And that's about where we placed the last one. I think my mission was the final one, and I think it was sometime in November.
Yep. So we'll see what we can do. I mean, it's an idea. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it ends up not getting done by, the Starbase UGC group, I can always do it myself,
You're no stranger to big series.
No, but it is I've never done one more than 3 parts. But this is big. The scope of it is very big. So we'll see.
How many parts are you looking at for this one?
6.
Okay.
Yeah, I put
the same as last time, although we had started with 5 and added a 6th. Right.
I had actually inserted the second one in.
And not even added, inserted.
Well, it had to not interrupt the missions on either side of it, so it was a little difficult.
That time we ended up with too many authors and not enough missions.
Well, we had 6.
Yeah, but I think we can find 6 authors willing to do something.
Yeah, I mean, our ranks aren't what they were when Purity was around. I don't think we're going to have to worry about it, about like disappointing anyone. I mean, I wasn't even supposed to do a mission the last time. I just, I took over when Kirkvad had to bow out. So.
Well, it'd be nice if we could recruit some new folks in addition to established authors. We got lots of people who listen to the show who don't necessarily come into the Starbase UGC chat a lot, but I'm sure might be willing to join.
Yeah, get them in there. Everybody, come over to Starbase UGC. Join. The more, the better.
A far less exclusive group than it sounds.
Well, all right.
But I'm sure the next step would probably be something like have a phone call and.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
a Skype call, not a phone call.
Right. First, I want to bandy it around the chat room and get people's takes on it because it's really just rough right now. I'd like to get as much feedback as I can on it. I think the only one who's actually read it is Johnny Snowball so far.
Well, because you only just posted it today, so.
Well,
I haven't had a chance to read it.
I let him read it a few days ago before it was even finished. But, I don't think he did he just glanced at it. Anyhow, it's in the chat room if anybody wants to take a look at it.
You said holographic rights, and that does sound very interesting.
Well, it is, and there's more to it than that. But, like I said, I don't want to give too much away.
Sure.
Because it's pretty much as involved as Purity was, but it's probably not as complicated a mission to build. Sets might be tough. There's some big ideas in there.
In some ways, we may have bit off a bit too much in Purity. We were very ambitious, I think, with that, and mostly successful. But
well, now that we know,
it's not necessarily bad,
right? But now that we've been through it once, we know what to avoid.
We do. And we know to avoid Relum time. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Relum time will get the joke. Yeah, and we'll, I think having, obviously we need to Dragoon, pardon the pun, Dragoon Rogue Enterprise into being our project manager again, if that doesn't completely destroy him.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he did a good job.
He did. He got frustrated at times, but he ended up holding everything together. So
he did. He did a good job.
I doubt he'll want to do it.
That's cold.
Yeah, he'll probably say he doesn't want the responsibility. He's got bigger fish to fry right now, I think.
That's true. He does. But there's any number of us who can fill that role, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can handle it. I know we can.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say right now that tentatively I am in.
Excellent.
So you got one guy on board.
Good, because I thought it went over.
I haven't even read it. But I'm on board.
Well, give it a read.
I had a good time last time.
Yeah, Purity was fun.
The first thing that comes to my mind when you talk about holographic rights is the Heroian concept of holographic rights.
Interesting that you say that. You should read it. You should read it.
All right. Well, we won't force you to reveal anything more.
No.
We'll say if you are interested, swing by the Starbase UGC chat room.
Please.
And, we'll let you in on it, and we'll go from there, and we'll let people know when there's scheduled conference calls, and they can get in on it.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
And with that, I think I'm going to bow out on you guys because things going on here.
You have other things going on, so thanks for joining us, and we'll
feeding my son. Right. Well, thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
See you guys later. Thanks.
All right, so we'll move along to I don't know. Has anybody been doing much work in the Foundry? I know I actually have not.
I've been doing a little bit
busy lately. I've actually been so busy in real life that I haven't had. I don't think I've actually even logged into the game more than once or twice in the last week.
Yeah, real life can do that to you sometimes. I know I've been mostly logging in to turn in some rep things and do some doffing, and obviously, if you notice where we are is the Ryzen Resort, and that's going to be starting up tomorrow, the Ryzen event. So I'll be doing lots of that. But now that we get that fix for ESD in, I can finish my Iconian War mission and move on to who knows what.
How's that going along?
It's mostly just going to be trigger work and lots of it. Because there's going to be lots of explosions. I'm going to try. The idea is to make it like a war movie. I watched a lot of war movies. There's certain tropes that are involved in war movies, and I want to hit a lot of those. And kind of make it feel like, and this is going to be notable because it's going to be essentially a defeat for you. And those are hard to do, as we know. I've seen one of the complaints lobbied around a lot is that the Iconian War is supposed to feel like, this is like the war to end all wars. The ancient enemies returned. It's supposed to be huge, and it just doesn't feel like that because we win every engagement, or it seems like we do. And then there's a cutscene that says we don't. And that's, the nature of this game is it's very hard to show a losing battle because the player wins every engagement. They sort of have to. That's how the game is built.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess Cryptic could explore a death as mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are actually some missions where they do kind of, sort of make you lose, but those involve things we can't do in the Foundry. Like there was the Colosseum mission where your ship starts doing stuff, and then all of a sudden your ship stops doing anything. But that's one of those little things where it's like this little God mode thingy that the AI does.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some tricks that Cryptic can do that we can't. There are some things that I think we can do, and basically my idea is you're gonna be stuck on a ground map, and you're gonna be attacked and attacked and attacked, and eventually all the NPCs that were with you at the start are gonna be killed off and killed off and killed off until it's just you and a few others left in this siege, essentially, and then your ship is going to finally get some reinforcements and break through and come back to rescue you. But they're going to tell you that they have, even though you held out, and there's still a few of you left, they don't have enough, there's more heralds on the way. They don't have enough manpower or firepower to hold the line, and they're going to have to get you, retrieve your dead and wounded, and get the heck out of there.
Kind of like the Starbase 234 thing, where you fight the heralds, you fight more heralds, and all of a sudden this giant fleet warps in, and then you're like, okay, now we got to go.
Yeah, they're going to overwhelm you.
Well, you can do scenarios, for instance, where there were multiple points that need to be held, but even while you're protecting point A, point B falls, and you go to try to recover point B, and point A falls, and you can't be everywhere.
That's another way to do it. Another one that I'm exploring for a potential follow-up to this mission is where you are relegated to shepherding refugees while everybody loses the battles around you. So essentially, you're off doing one thing, and you can accomplish that particular goal, but you keep hearing on the communicator how things are going badly elsewhere.
That's
and part of the plot.
That's a Cait scenario.
In what way?
Where he's in command of the freighter, and watching the Klingons conquer everything around him.
Mm-hmm. I actually built sort of a proof of concept of this kind of map on Tribble one time, because I was there testing out mobs, and I wanted a sort of real mission. And it's going to be kind of neat because you got sort of freighter type things that are carrying refugees. One warps in away from the starbase. You have to go out and escort it back, and it gets tacked along the way. And then once that's safe, another one warps in at a different point, and you have to escort it towards the starbase, and then another one. And I have to go back and look at how I did it on Tribble. Hopefully it's still there. And to see, because I had this thing set up where you had some dialogue options to say that if you lost some of the freighters, if some of them got destroyed, there were some dialogue options to cover that only appeared if they got destroyed. So I have to remember how I actually did that.
Well, you have to do it on a per NPC group basis.
Yes. I think you can trigger some dialogues, if component complete, right?
Yes. You can trigger map dialogues that way, or you can have certain dialogue choices in map dialogues appear or disappear, depending on whether the ships were destroyed or not.
Yeah. So you can have an NPC say, you're a hero, you got all of these refugees to safety, or say, we lost 1,000 souls on that vessel. You have to do better, or something like that.
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, the thing with you accomplish your goal, and whenever that happens, you have a dialogue pop up talking about how someone else failed theirs.
Mm-hmm. Say transmission. You overhear transmissions saying, so and so starship has been destroyed. We've lost this planet. Everybody's retreating. The idea is going to be that you're a small part of battles that are going on around you in a sector, essentially. I've got a lot of plans for several other parts of this mission. I just have to get off my butt and build them, which is as usual for me. Got a lot of scenes in my head. Let's see, we've got some people talking in the chat room. Pax says Ghost Gambit is ready for playtesting this weekend, or he hopes to have it. And he's looking for people to have some play some of their ships, if they wanted, in his epic first map battle. I think he's talked about this a little bit before, and I think the idea is most of these ships are going to die, so make sure it's not one you're attached to. Sure, I can probably get him one. I know Sutherland is on the forums. He's got a mission coming up that he's asking people who want to be cameos in. It sounds like it's going to be another. That. Is he done?
Well, he's done collecting cameos. He mentioned something about how he's at the costume limit, so he can't add anymore. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of players will just use stock classes, so he can just use a stock. It's not like the name on the hulls update, anyways, or that players get close enough to see him.
Sometimes they do, don't they?
I say it's been a while since they actually updated.
I see. At some point, I remember them doing that. I can't remember
later
how.
on, when the Foundry will test that.
Yes. All right. So, Dragoon, you said you had worked in the Foundry a little bit.
I have. I've been trying to solve a little bit of a dilemma with part one. At the very end. Well, that's what I was thinking. At the very end, you have this race towards this array, and at 3 points, if you take a direct path, you get attacked by enemies, fight them, and then you get a bit of expositional text updating you on the situation on your ship. So things are getting progressively worse. You're taking more damage. Your crew is having troubles, and this kind of updates you. By the time you get to your goal, the final dialogue is delivered, and things are in a horrible state. So when I built this, I didn't want to have like 3 different waypoints with 3 different mandatory battles, even though they are kind of mandatory so that you can advance the story. So I set them up as these ambushes that you're just cruising along. You trigger an invisible reach marker, and a ship warps in and immediately attacks you. Unfortunately, the way it works right now, there's a couple of scenarios that can cause this problems for this. The first being is if your impulse speed is fast enough, you can overshoot past the attacking ship before they can bring weapons to bear, or you're knocked out of full impulse. And the other is cloaking devices, which totally mess up the whole scenario because they just go right past everything, and then the mission breaks. And
I think I remember going past most of it when I played yours, but it's been a long time.
So the absolute simplest solution would be to just make everything a mandatory objective, have your 3 waypoints and 3 kill objectives. It's not the most creative, and it would be very much kind of a showing my hand on how I'm making things work. So the other thing I'm thinking about doing is like adding in some pop-up dialogue when you first trigger one of these invisible reach markers that basically says incoming, something like incoming ship detected or stuff like that. But it's enough that it'll knock any ships out of cloak and at least temporarily disable full impulse.
Assuming the player hasn't set the option that their velocity keeps going even when they're have a dialogue on.
That's an option?
Yeah. I forget where it is, but I have it set on one of my...
Yeah, it's something in the settings menu that will make it so that your ship doesn't automatically stop. And let's see here.
Well, I mean, there was another option I was exploring, and that was having 2 reach markers for each. I don't know. I kind of think of them as landmines. But the first one you hit triggers a static effect, and that kills your full impulse. And then the second one disables it, so it's only up there for like a half a second.
That's a possible solution, yeah.
The only thing about that is that from my research and asking around, I guess that doesn't actually disable cloak, though, which is a bit disappointing because that was going to be my one solution. Fire that up, they hit it, they drop out of impulse, drop out of cloak.
So do both. If they hit it, you do that so it drops them at a full impulse, and then you have a dialogue that comes up to decloak them.
Well, actually, you could make the dialogue talk about the static effect.
Well, I mean,
some officer saying, "What was that? Oh no, we have incoming."
Yeah, I thought about it. I thought about trying to write like an extra optional dialogue in the beginning when that says, "Can we use our cloak?" And the basic says yes, but it may be intermittent or fail unexpectedly. Do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, while I'm putting this all together in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, am I just making this way too complicated? Should I just go for the simple, straightforward answer and accept that there's going to be a little bit of contrivance to it?
Well, on one hand, I mean, it's a fairly long mission, and this is the end of it.
Yeah.
And do you want to just go ahead and get them to the end and not make it too complicated? If they hit them, they hit them. If they're out of range, they're out of range. You could insert a dialogue that says we may be able to outrun some of them so that you're covered if they do outrun them.
Yeah, my only problem is that there's currently actual exposition tied to the after you fight each battle, and it's kind of weird if you miss all of that.
After some technical difficulties, welcome to part 2 of our live stream for episode 102. So we're back from our enforced hiatus of a few minutes, and we're ready to move on. So, Dragoon, let's move on to your mission review.
So yes, after the second attempt, I finally got through Catastrophe at Cait. Got those Iconians what's for. Went a lot smoother at normal difficulty.
Heralds. We don't have access to actual Iconians. I asked Zero on Twitter about that, or Trendy actually on Twitter about that, and she said that I think for the moment they were mainly restricting actual Iconians for dev use. So.
Yeah, and that makes total sense.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's no way
there's a lot they haven't revealed about the Iconians yet that may affect things. Like I don't know. There's a fan theory going around that there's only a handful of them, and we've only seen 2. Maybe there's only 2 left.
I think we got names for 3. Well, maybe we've seen 3 and have names.
We've got Matara and Cait. So
no, there's definitely 3, but because didn't we have a third one pop up in the latest FE?
No, that was Cait. That was in that one. And Matara is the other one we've seen, specifically seen. And Matara was the one that showed up at Kronos and killed all the council members. SirBoulevard says there's 8, according to them.
Okay.
SFC 100 says there's one of them in the loading screens, who's teal blue.
Anyway,
so these guys know more about it. Anyway, back to it.
Back to review. Okay, so a quick synopsis. You were called into Cait because Captain Thomas Maroney, aka Thomas the Cat, is at Cait on a secret mission when the Heralds attack, and you were called in to assist. For the most part, it's kind of evolves around battling the Iconians in or the Heralds in space and securing the system, and then they show up on board your ships or your ship, and so you're forced to run through various sections of your ship and um, clear out the heralds that have come aboard, as well as meeting various members of the crew along the way, and then finally finishing off with another space battle, and then finally you meet the head of the Asian government, as I can tell.
I think he had some names for the various organizations, but
Yeah.
governmental work.
As usual, he's putting quite a bit of thought into the social structure, like he did with the Pharasans. I figure I should break down. Let's start off with map design. A lot of the maps were stock uses. He kind of took advantage of some of the new maps, like the new conference room. He also had a couple of custom maps, which were very nicely done. He had a very nice crew lounge that you go through. And I will say that I was actually a little sorry that more of the mission didn't take place in this map. When you're going through your ship interior, you basically have three locations you visit, including the main engineering, this crew lounge, and the conference room. I personally kind of would like to have seen the conference room deck expanded so that you had more of the story taking place on that. Because it seems like, I mean, he had like hallways that were like blocked off with invisible walls, but it felt like it went on bigger. So it would have been nice to have seen more of that, and maybe cut out a couple of map transitions in the process. The other big custom map, I mean, obviously, other than some very nice space maps of Cait space, which obviously we've never seen before, was the office of this Caitian leader. I'm sorry, I'm spacing on the actual name he gave to her.
He's in the chat room. He'll probably tell you.
Probably. Which is a very nice map, and it's really cool because it has a lot of the visibility of the city outside, out through the windows. Which I saw he made use of the vault, the big giant ground vault version we have.
Mm-hmm. Always good.
Which, of course, we kind of speculated would make a really good city. Let's see. Battle-wise, obviously, the first time I went through, I had kind of had a challenging time with the Space Enemies. The grounds didn't give me too much trouble, even though I was on advanced difficulty for much of it. But yeah, when I got to the second space battle, pretty much the Herald forces overwhelmed my allies and then proceeded to overwhelm me several times. So after that, I came back to it later and switched it down to normal and continued from there, and then it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, the Heralds are not for the faint of heart. I think they're probably one of the more difficult mobs that we do have access to in the Foundry.
Truthfully, if you canceled out the Herald chain disable thing, they'd be a walk in the park.
Well,
it's preventing them from chain disabling you that's what makes Heralds annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've started to develop some tactics, and essentially, focus fire the cruisers first because they launched the probes and use things like I think it was your suggestion last time, Mark, to use the the warp plasma.
Yeah, I think
the ones that like to
Yeah.
jump behind you and use a ramming attack, they hate warp plasma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In any case, it's probably a good idea. One of the things he does in this mission, because I played it too, is I think he stacks a lot of mobs on top of each other, and my allies died quite quickly as well. I think in some parts of it, because there's several stages to the battle, the first battle. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's tough to gauge combat balance because you one run through you're going to get your butt kicked and another run through you might not. So
something else I do have to note though is that it seemed that he was working around a Foundry bug that existed up until recently, with the fact that no matter which mobs you chose, the only ones we actually had available were ensign mobs or captain mobs.
yeah, initially the other mobs that were supposed to be herald spawned bluegill, but now they actually you can use the rest of them because that has been fixed. So
Yeah,
he
so,
may have, if he hasn't yet, he may want to go back and spice up the variety on those ground mobs.
Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely knowledge of that, so that may have kind of led to an inability for him to really fine tune the balance. So story-wise, it's kind of interesting in that he seems to be kind of going for a number of things. First off, this mission is very much cameos or a cavalcade of cameos, and I think that was partially intentional, because there's a lot of characters like from other Foundry missions, as well as like Thomas
From yours,
Ferroni,
for one thing.
some from mine. I think Elson Helena was in here, and probably a couple of others that I didn't recognize, but probably come from other Foundry missions. I know a couple of the characters he was trying to introduce were characters of his own creation, such as there's an engineer named Yamaguchi, I think, as well as I think there's a yeoman I know is one of his, and I want to say there's like one other it seemed like he was trying to introduce.
There's some of the Cation characters as well.
Yeah, obviously. There's like the Cation leader.
And there's the Cation military leader, who has there's quite an involved backstory that he create. I don't know if he's created most of it or gleaned some of it from other sources. I know there's some things written down about Cations, but not a lot generally.
Which was a little weird.
The canon sources for data on the Cations, there aren't any, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you go through memory beta, there's a few added facts, but yeah, for the most part, the only canon sources we have, if you take it as canon, is the animated series.
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking of something else.
There was one showed up in like some of the group shots of the crowd at the in Star Trek 4, right?
There were several scenes in the Star Trek movies with the Cations. It's just that, like you said, it's a person standing there.
Yeah.
In the animated series, they never really examined Cation culture or history. They had Imrest there, who's the helmsman or whatever, and they never examined where she came from, etc. One thing that some people don't know about is that they actually did make a series of not comic books, but cartoon strips to go along with the animated series. And one of those had background information about the Cations in it. I don't have a copy.
He's saying some of the backstories came from RPG stuff, like pen and paper, I think is what he means.
I thought I wanted to say that there was a Star Trek RPG based on the Cations.
Yeah.
I know a little bit of what I've read on memory beta about them generally being peace-loving and... That's
Yeah, and his mission reflects that, and he goes into detail about how they're sort of a military arm, but it's actually coming from the people who were the Ferocans,
Well,
or who became the Ferocans, or something like that.
In the cartoon strips, if I remember right, they had a brief mention of how the Caitians are. Well, it's like with the way Stowe did it, as being like distant relatives of the Kzinti, but they didn't actually explain a whole lot about it.
Yeah, and we
I
do
think
have
the only info you get about that in Stowe is in some flavor text in DOF assignments, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there's that DOF chain.
Yeah, that.
The Caitian diaspora.
Because in that set of cartoon strips, they actually did use the Kzinti on more than one occasion. I mean, because there was this story arc called Kilkenny Cats, where it's a bunch of Kzinti trying to take over a Starfleet colony.
And yeah, I mean, and obviously for rights reasons, they kind of had to substitute the Ferocans for the Kzinti.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, there's still definitely a ton of open space, and it is kind of cool to like see him kind of start to fill in some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So something I kind of wanted to talk about in relation to all of these characters is the way that they're handled as far as their introductions, how they're presented, especially since there are so many of them. Because, I mean, in some cases, I felt like he did a really good job of like just letting the characters kind of be there, not worrying about some characters that were they're just there. They don't like draw unnecessary attention to their presence there. It's just just other cases he kind of gives you an option to react like, oh, I know this person, or I've never met you. And in other cases he kind of just assumes that you do know who they are. So I would love to kind of see
a mix of all of those tactics.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, in some cases, especially with characters that I didn't know, but he kind of assumed that my captain would know him, it kind of felt weird. So I know with, for instance, Yamaguchi, I mean, my captain makes some comment about how he's the best officer we have in engineering. Is like, really? I never didn't know that. So
yeah, and that's one of those story limitations with the Foundry that we've talked about many times.
But yeah, I mean, in other cases though, he kind of goes the extra step and like offers a choice of reacting like the captain just hasn't met this person before, or giving him the option. Oh, it was like, you were that person from so where and so, or I met you over there. So I like it when he kind of puts in a little extra time and gives the option to kind of let the player acknowledge whether or not they know this character. But I mean, in a couple of other cases, it's written in such a way that it doesn't necessarily draw any attention to whether the player does or doesn't know the character. And it's one of those funny things that really got me like spun off thinking about the whole concept of dealing with characters, especially those on the player's crew, and how best to kind of handle them. Because I mean, especially for characters,
a lot of us have done it. Introduced a new character who is ostensibly supposed to be on the player's crew.
Well, let me ask you an extra question: have you ever reused a character that is on the player's crew? Because I know he's kind of setting up some of these characters to be used later.
And actually, in one case, he said that engineer was supposed to have a mission where he got introduced in SirBoulevard's canon of missions, but it got delayed to get this one done first. So you're sort of almost missing an introduction there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like
when
that
Fox
aside,
took Firefly and aired it out of order.
Well, I kind of take the whole silent hero approach to the player's crew. So I don't actually try to write characters for someone's crew.
Well,
But
I've been, like I said, I've been
I've
giving
done it.
this a
I've
lot
done
of
it a few
thought.
times.
Go ahead.
Your question was, have you reused a character that is supposed to be like a minor junior officer? And I have, sort of. In my original Descent series, I had a sort of throwaway character, a chief petty officer, Andorian in engineering, and she's only there for one scene. You interact with her. Your ship is heavily damaged. She's down there trying to repair things. She asks you to hey, hit that console for me, and thing like that. And it's one scene. And I actually used her again in the Purity series, where for again essentially just one little scene. You don't need to know her really. And actually, I think I used her once more for another essentially the same thing. It's somebody you don't need to know. It's just a person on your crew. But I gave her a name. And in Purity, she's the one where, you're on the run from Starfleet. They've declared you a renegade. And she's the one who comes from the crew that says, we're with you in this. We're in the right. We believe in you. I had to have somebody say that, and I wanted him to have a name, so I reused that character.
It's funny. I mean, after kind of playing through this, I actually started thinking back to TNG. Because I mean, TNG had reoccurring characters that weren't main characters all the time. So if you think about the player as the captain, so he's the player is Jean-Luc Picard. Then the bridge officers are all the senior staff. Then the characters that we introduce are the junior officers. They're the I think they're like the what was Ashley Judd's character?
Leffler.
Robin Leffler. Okay, so
Robin Leffler, yeah.
Robin Leffler is a really good example because she appears in several episodes and even gets a very hefty co-star stint in one episode with Wesley. But if you look at her episodes, she comes out of and fades into the woodwork really easily. So if Geordi talks to her, it doesn't seem natural because there's a ton of people in engineering and we're not supposed to really know them. If Leffler walked up to Captain Picard, Captain Picard would probably say, "Who are you?" or just some lieutenant. But at the same time, they still can go through and craft a lot of story for her because she can come out of the woodwork, have her moment in the spotlight, but then fade back into it, and we don't think too much about
You're not asking every episode. You're not asking, "Hey, where's Leffler?"
Yeah.
TNG was kind of odd that way because they had a lot of named minor characters, and I think that some of the characters that ended up being major characters later were not planned as major characters and were meant to have smaller parts than they did in the end.
Yeah.
CaptPFDennis in the chat room says Sonia Gomez from season 2.
She was like
and actually probably the prime example is Reginald Barclay.
Yeah.
He obviously developed into a much larger, but
he's only in about 5 episodes.
Yeah.
5 episodes in the movie. And
but
a tiny bit part in the movie.
Other than his introduction mission.
Barclay actually did show up in Voyager for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
I think he actually was almost on Voyager more than he was on.
But I mean, even he was pretty good about because I mean, there's a lot of spots where he's just a background character. He's not stealing. He's just kind of that guy that Geordi gives a task to. Mm-hmm. Like, man, Geordi has had a lot of named minor characters.
Mm-hmm.
His first appearance was he was working on a malfunctioning anti-gravity sled, I think.
One of the TV shows that really I think has made the best use of sort of secondary named characters that I can name is Battlestar Galactica, the reimagined 2000s series, because it had a huge stable of characters, minor characters that you would see in minor capacities almost every week, and you would get to know them, and then at some point they might have their moment to shine. There was one guy who was all the way in the miniseries that started the show. He was a bit part. He was there. He had a few lines, at key moments, and then he's minor player, has a few moments in multiple episodes as the series go on, and then at some point he shows up and he saves the day.
For some reason, I was thinking this was going to end with surprise. I'm a Cylon.
No, not this guy. No, I'm thinking of Captain Kelly. The name just came to me. Who is played by an excellent actor whose name is also escaping me.
Sorry, you're not going to.
One of those guys who shows up in every show ever shot in Vancouver. So, anyway, but bringing in secondary characters, and I like to, in my missions, have almost a stable of secondary characters that I do use a lot. Various admirals and other Klingons and things, and I like to keep bringing them back. Even if nobody notices but me, it's still fun.
Actually, I did just think of something that surprised I'm a Cylon lot remark. It's like, so what do you think about the possibility of writing a character in a Foundry mission that pulled off something like that?
Well, I'll tell you. And this is something that has been bothering me lately, because one of the other shows I watch, Supernatural, has been doing this a lot over its run, is they'll introduce a great character. He's an ally and of the players, an interesting character, has some good episodes, and then they'll have a huge break between their appearances, and they'll come back and they're suddenly evil for some reason. And
Luckily,
I really don't like that. And then they'll kill them off.
Luckily, that's because they wanted to renegotiate their contract. No, I mean, luckily, Star Trek doesn't tend to have that problem. Unless you're Seska.
Unless you're Seska. Let's face it, she was always evil.
True.
Because
she was a bit character, though.
I mean, even in her appearances before she revealed who she was, really, I didn't like her very much.
Well, there was that one episode where she talked Torres into stealing tech from one of their allies.
Yeah.
And attempting to make it work with the Voyager, only to find out that, one, the tech couldn't work with Voyager because if you were to actually power the device on, it would blow the ship up. And two, if you were to move away from the planet of origin of this technology, it wouldn't work.
So I would say if you're going to do something like that, plant the seeds early. With Seska, she was not a likable person before we found out that she was an evil person.
Well, she was actually written from the beginning, I think, as one of the troublemakers in the Maquis crew.
Mm-hmm. I think they might have had an idea that they were going to reveal her as the Cardassian spy.
Well, it seems to me like they had the idea at the beginning that not all of the Maquis characters were going to go along with Janeway's ideas of working together for the common good. And Seska apparently was one of them. What was it? I suppose I shouldn't. We don't really need to explain about why that tech didn't work.
So anyway, any other thoughts on this mission, Dragoon?
Well, no, I think that covers most of it. I would say, I mean, I kind of felt like there were.
Sorry, I one last thing on minor characters. There was a couple instances of that I remember from this mission that sort of didn't fit for me, and that's a player or a new character basically telling me their whole life story while we're still in the midst of being boarded by an enemy.
Yeah, you kind of got to be careful of that.
Yeah, you have to be careful choose when to do that sort of thing.
So I'm taking that into my own mission, where part of it is you're going to go rescue a downed shuttle pilot while you're under attack from Heralds or Elachi. I haven't decided yet. And you're going to get there and you're going to start talking to her, and then she's going to say something like, "Hey, I don't have time to tell you my whole life story. Let's get out of here." So I'm going to try and avert that particular thing, and then, you know, if there's, I think in a further mission where you actually get some downtime, then I'm going to be able to introduce people properly that you have already met.
Yeah, I think I did a little bit of backstory for my characters in part 2, just as optional dialogue. Not after you form your big plan, you can go talk to them if you want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of cases, you just kind of have to imagine it like this character has their own little circle that they move in, and you've got the player circle, which normally does not intersect with this character, but every once in a while, the two paths will intersect, and it's just that interaction. Obviously, the minor character is going to know who the captain is, but the captain may not.
SirBoulevard says that that was intentional because that character is supposed to be very irritating. I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, it almost kind of, if you think about it, way more than you actually show. It's like you figure them out enough to know what their mannerisms, their nature, who they are, but you don't actually have to tell the player any of that. You just have to make sure that they're holding consistent and true to their character as you as their part in it takes place.
I'm actually planning to do that with several characters. I mean, you're going to meet them in extreme circumstances, and you know, nobody's going to have time to ask what's your life story, and nobody should. I mean, you wouldn't, if you're getting shot at, you know, you're not going to pause to have a lengthy conversation, probably. But then, you know, once you get out of that situation, and there's time to actually have proper introductions. I mean, that feels real to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I've seen in some war movies where they would have two guys who were ostensibly in the middle of a fight, talking to each other about things that seemed utterly ridiculous. And depending on how the scene's written, it may or may not be completely absurd. But it's not like you're giving someone your life story, though. It's that you're talking to them about stuff. And I think most of them, they actually started talking about something important and then just kind of got sidetracked and just kept talking because they were talking.
One other suggestion I kind of wanted to bring up was is to use the bridge officers wisely. Because if you think about it, you've got the captain, and for the most part, he's only ever going to interact with his bridge officers. That's not to say you don't have, but then they have their own departments. And so, for instance, Reg was under Geordi. So even if Captain Picard isn't really all that familiar with Red or Barclay, because unless he's causing a major problem, Geordi obviously knows Barclay, and so you can have a little bit of freedom to kind of let the bridge officer interact with the excuse me.
You could have him make the introduction as well. You know, this is so and so from my department.
Yeah, or I mean, let the bridge officer lead on the conversation. So it's like the captain says, "Well, we need a solution to this problem," and Geordi says to Reg, "Hey, Reg, you were working on that one thing. Can you tell us about it?" So it's kind of a chain of command you almost follow.
Well, it's kind of like what you said earlier, is that you're not going to expect the captain to be familiar with every minor officer on his ship.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
every single crewman. He might know their name and remember their name when you mention their name, but he's not going to know that this guy was working on a project to enhance an induction field coil. That's what the chief engineer's job
That's what you have your department heads for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very rare to meet a leader of, who might have thousands of people under him, who knows personal and intimate details of everybody under their command, and knows what their lives are like and things and exactly like that. It's Picard might be able to do it, but not the rest of us mere mortals. Cisco could tell you, he knew all those details about, he was always talking about, I'm not sure what episodes, but I'm remembering a scene where Cisco's talking about an officer of his who just got killed. It was an officer that you've never seen before, but Cisco knows them. Even though they're relatively junior officers, he knew so-and-so was supposed to be married next week and things like that. So
especially if,
your captain might know that, and he might not.
Yeah. And it just gets really tricky because the player
we don't
and
know
the
what kind of captain you are.
captain are synonymous, so.
You might run into a player captain who's completely incompetent, and who the heck knows why they got this posting. But we don't know that. So, having the bridge officer make the introductions and do a lot of the interactions is a great idea.
Well,
Yeah.
well, one thing that I thought of about Cisco is that, they kind of played off the whole station commander thing by having him be a bit more of a bureaucrat at some points than others.
Well, and his job was almost to be more like a military governor. Yeah. I think he even references that point at some point in an episode.
So he actually had more reason than your average ship commander to know everyone under him.
Yeah, he couldn't quite fall on the
and I think it's
command
even a plot point. I think it's even a plot point at some point as to how he's getting to know the Bajorans under his command.
Actually, there was that one rather interesting episode with that Bajoran engineer who, let's just say this is one of those characters where they had one of those surprise I'm a Cylon moments, and you really wish they hadn't.
Oh, you mean the one that had a crush on O'Brien and then got talked into trying to assassinate Ryle?
No, I wouldn't say talked into trying to assassinate him. If I remember right, that was actually her reason for coming to Deep Space Nine in the first place.
I don't think it's ever stated whether or not.
It's been a while since I watched those episodes.
No, I mean the only reveal is that there was a Wynn giving her orders.
Yeah.
It never says how far back the collaboration goes.
To me, it does feel like maybe she was, because Wynn is a master manipulator. It does kind of feel like she was manipulated into it. But there's a lot of gray area there.
I think that's most everything I've got.
Most everything you got? I will say, I mean, the thing about this mission is it does feel like a big battle that you're in. It feels like it's a proper epic space battle. And that's good. That's what I think what he was intending and what it should be.
Yeah.
And it's war. That's the kind of mission we need. One of the kinds, anyway. Mine will be a bit different. So, all right, that was Catastrophe at Cait, and I know SirBoulevard has a new mission out called Derelict. So I'm sure he's looking for more folks to play that one.
He did get that out of review, right?
I'm not certain. He's in the chat room. He'll probably tell us. In the meantime, I came up with a little idea for an activity tonight. So, Dragoon, if you want to load up the Foundry.
Okay.
Now, SirBoulevard says it is out of review.
Well, that's good.
so everybody can find it. While you're loading up the Foundry, I'll tell everyone that I have been working on the polls that I've been doing for objects and maps to see which ones we might like Taco to focus on next. I'm going to close them on Friday, so if you're listening to this after the fact, those polls have been closed, sorry. But if you're listening to it in the chat room, go ahead and get your vote in if you haven't already. And then I will try and compile those over the weekend. If I have time, it's going to be a busy weekend for me. And get those posted as to our preferences on what we might like to have added in the Foundry next. Taco did say he was going to hold off on maps. Let's see, we got about 40 people on the map poll, and then about 30 each on the objects polls, which is fairly close to what it was last time, if I recall correctly.
It's always kind of interesting to see because, I mean, despite us all wanting to see founding improvements, we all often have very different ideas about what those founding improvements look like.
I just thought of something. You should update the poll. You know that interior map where you wander around and massacre Harold in the latest episode?
The latest featured episode. Obviously, you know, a lot of us would love to have that, especially those of us working on Iconium missions.
Interesting map.
Yeah, but it's a little late to update the poll now, right?
This is true. I mean, maybe just wait. See, another thing I noticed that was interesting about that one, that they actually made the new set of sliding door props for that one.
Yeah.
All right, I have the Foundry loaded up whenever you're ready.
Okay. So, first of all, Dragoon has no idea what I'm going to ask him to do here. I have kept this a secret from him for a purpose. And Mark as well. Because it's going to be hopefully a interesting challenge and also an interesting tutorial for people that we can show. Okay. So what I've done is I have sifted through some of the recent Stowe Foundry Forum pages, looking for questions that people have had, things they wanted to figure out, things they wanted to do. And I've made a list of these, and I'm going to put these questions to Greendragoon, and he's going to show us how to do them, obviously with Mark and I's input, because between the three of us, we ought to be able to figure out how to do all these things if Dragoon doesn't already automatically know how. I've got they run the gamut from simple to complicated. I don't know if we'll have time for all of them, but we've certainly got a number here to go through. And then once we have these, even if the question was already added, answered in the thread, these are things that, we can link, so-and-so is asking this question. We've already done this. We can link it to them. So for the very first one, this is a question that came up not too long ago on the Foundry. Dragoon, if you would like to make an NPC lay flat on the ground.
Okay.
I believe this is this question that you actually answered.
We can find a good
ground map.
Interior.
Or an interior, yeah. This also allows us to do a little tutorial on NPC animations, how to do that, because that's what you need to make somebody lay flat.
All right.
I should say that. Go ahead.
I was putting in my NPC, and I'm assuming a contact on this guy. Although,
yeah, it works. Actually, we can show for NPC groups next as well.
Fair enough. All right, so go ahead and assign. I'm going ahead and assign the contact behavior. There's the legacy contact behavior if you want to get really complicated, but as we're only doing one animation, we don't need anything. So the dead animation is actually the lie flat front, which is funny because it used to actually be they would lie on their face, but nowadays it's more of a natural dead pose on their back, so it's a little misleading. We fire this up.
There are several animations that do make you lie down. Sleep is one of them, but I think sleep has some issues with it, doesn't it? Sometimes it's animated. You actually move around. Is that correct?
There's my dead cadet.
Someone mentioned on the forum that the sleep one, the amount that the person fidgets apparently links to the stance of the costume.
Ah, interesting.
That could be. I mean, if you think of these animations, it's kind of like overrides. If there's any aspect that doesn't quite override, it's going to default back to what it was originally.
Well, it's kind of like a continual emote.
All right, so
you said lie flat front is the
that's the dead animation
for dead.
There's sleep lying down.
You don't actually lie flat on your front for that one. It just is called that.
Well, it used to be true. It has since been updated and
yeah, we got probably one of those things that was changed for something in the game, an animation that Cryptic needed to use, and got filtered down to the Foundry.
All right, can you think of any other lying down still poses?
Well, let's see. We covered sleep. I don't quite remember if there's any others. There's some injured lying down where the NPC is lying down, but they're still moving around. They're acting like they're injured.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's the animation that they usually use when they have someone laying on the medical bay.
Yeah.
They kind of like twitch like they're in pain or something.
Mm-hmm.
It should be noted there's also fall down. I don't think it's completely dead. I think they kind of fall backwards and then they kind of lie there. They're not quite dead, but
now is that one of those animations that loops?
Don't think it loops, but we'll find out in a sec.
We're about to find out.
And let's throw one of the injured. Which I guess is under hurt, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Welcome Asian Potato 617 to the Foundry Roundtable chat room.
The two versions of hurt, there's one where they're on their back but kind of wailing. And then there's one where they're on their back and they kind of just get these spasms of pain. I'm going to use the second one.
I tell everyone that while we've been doing this, I've been playing Dabo, and so far I've won 42,000 gold press latinum. Should I quit when I hit 47?
I think I'm at around 43, but for whatever reason, a large chunk of the GPL that I got was from a single one where I hit 15,000 all at once.
Nice.
Bravo.
Those little gray things that look like a loop with legs on the side. If you line up 3 of those, it gives you 15,000.
All right, so we've got the dead animation. That guy is not moving. We've got the lying on back sleeping, which they are pretty motionless. So cadaver status.
You would have to test with the other stances, as we've heard.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
So then we've got this is the fall down animation. And obviously you can see it's very similar to the dead one, but they're not quite dead yet.
I believe at the very beginning when you load, I wasn't watching when you loaded the map, but they probably have that falling down. Map. Yeah, if you reset it, it should show us.
Yeah, she takes a second longer to fall down. That's the you just beamed her out of a situation where she was being shot.
There you go.
All right, and then we've got the last one, which is the second hurt lying on back. He moves a lot less than the other one. The other one he'll be kind of flailing. But he's still moving a little bit.
And why didn't you demonstrate how to put a animation on an NPC group?
Good thing. All right, so go ahead and switch up to a group. All right, so get a decent sized group here. Now the thing to remember about NPCs.
Oh yeah, by the way. Oh, I was just going to mention that if you give a default animation where someone's supposed to look like they're dead to a combat group, they may or may not get up and shoot enemies if enemies get too close to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a very good point.
They won't stay dead.
Yeah, as soon as they enter combat...
They're not really dead, they're just napping.
Yeah, as soon as they enter combat, their idle animation will get overridden. So they'll jump up and start attacking, which is...
Yeah, any animation at all.
Resulted in some pretty hilarious situations, especially when you have a ship full of dead NPCs that you use groups for to save on the contact list or the content limit, and then you have a battle, and suddenly all the dead bodies get up and join you. That didn't happen to me.
Zombies.
All right, so first thing you're going to want to do is assign a behavior. There's legacy combat and true combat. I'm going to go ahead and do one of those. And because you have a ton of other extra options, but in this case, I'm just going to leave it all default and just use assign the idle animation to be live at front. And the thing about NPC groups is they all have a single behavior. So you assign it to one, you can assign it to all. A lot of this stuff is related to having them perform different random acts. So you can have, so they will start to break up. You have a lot of different possible things that they can do. But in this case, since we just have the idle and nothing else in use.
What I like to use this one for is, place a NPC group of friendly NPCs. If you need a lot of officers around operating consoles, just sort of in the background, like people on your bridge just sitting at random consoles, since they're all going to be doing the same animation, you just plop an NPC group down, set them to be typing, and place them around where you need them.
Funny little story once when I was playing one of Stowe Admiral Aaron's missions is that he in the middle of his mission he has this big giant pile of bodies, and then a little later on you fight some enemies. Well, the pathing got a little weird, and so one of the enemies retreated back all the way around to this room of dead bodies. And of course, as soon as it got close, all of this massive amount of dead bodies jump up and start attacking this enemy that's backtracks all this way. Considering it was a pretty gruesome scene, it took a very strange, hilarious turn suddenly. So one downside here is that they're kind of all in the same pose. So let me try something else.
You can rotate them so that they're not facing the same direction.
That's
That
true.
breaks it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And move them around a bit. You place two of them and assign, two groups and assign two different animations. That's another thing you can do. And kind of intersperse them.
Yeah. Well, we don't have a ton of like dead. At least
Not a lot, no.
It's always funny when it. All right, so let's try your.
I remember a mission where somebody did they took the old Rura Penthe map and did something where you're fighting on the surface, trying to find out what happened to a bunch of guys that got killed down there. But of course, the person who did it placed combat mobs as the dead guys. So whenever you were engaged in combat near the dead guys, well,
What's really funny is after the combat's done, they'll run back to their spots, get down, and be dead again. All right, there we go. So that looks a little better.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Man, somebody massacred this group. Feel bad for them.
Yeah. Now, I think one thing you can do in space, there are several animations that loop, like warp in, warp out, and impulse, fly out, and things like decloak. Mm-hmm. And what you can do is, if you place those NPCs in combat right after they do they'll do their, next to enemy NPCs, they will do their animation once, and then they'll go in combat, and they'll forget that animation, and they'll just, when they're done, they won't do it anymore.
They will go back to warping in or out. But if you do it with enemies, and so you warp them in right on top of the, which is actually be a really cool thing to show.
Because I remember having people decloak right on top of enemy NPCs. These are friendly NPCs that are decloaking. They'll fight after they decloak, and then once your fighting is done, they'll go back to their original positions, but they won't start cloaking again.
It may not be.
That's been my experience anyway. I'd have to double check, go back to look at that map, but
okay, so we're just going to create a space map here. Don't need anything too complicated. So the first thing I'm going to show is the warping in on top of the player trick. So I am going to need an NPC group. Which reminds me, in relation to the dead bodies that don't stay put, we now have access to non-combat NPC groups, so we can use those.
Oh, that is right.
Up.
I had forgotten about that. That's a pretty recent.
Yeah. Thank you, Zero.
Mm-hmm. Do we have those in space?
We do. I believe we do. Hang on. Yep.
Do you remember what they're called?
I believe they're non-combat Federation and non-combat Klingon.
Nice. Because I can use that for my. Well, no, maybe not. Because they won't get fired upon by enemies, will they?
No, they won't be targetable.
Yeah. Never mind. I was going to use that for my escort mission, but I want it to be where the freighter you're escorting might get destroyed. So.
Yeah. No. No timid creatures for you.
No timid creatures for me.
You end up with something kind of like the battle around New Romulus in Blood of the Ancients,
Yeah, you can use them for like background ships or hero ships that you don't want to get destroyed, but unfortunately they'll just sit there. You could assign them a patrol, which is nice. That could be useful.
Okay, so I have a group of Gorn here, and we're going to go ahead and give them free combat. And I'm going to assign their idle animation to be warp in. And it's cool. The Gorn even have their own warp in effect. Now, the big problem with the warp in is that it will loop. So they will repeatedly keep warping in if left to their own devices. This is undesirable. But what we're going to do here is I've placed a beacon, and I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to select my Gorn group here, and I'm going to have them not appear until I think I'm going to do this with a reach marker. So go ahead and place a reach marker. 3 kilometers ought to do. All right, so set that. So the Gorn will appear on opponent reached, and I'm going to select my place marker. I don't need to despawn them. Pop this back. Okay, so let's go ahead and play this and test it out, see what happens. And actually, this is kind of the same thing I was doing with my part 1 ending, is I was having the player trigger reach markers and having ships warp in and attack.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there you go. Oh, you see the warped in there? And of course, as soon as they spawn, they attack, so they're obviously not going to warp now.
Mm-hmm.
And of course,
SirBoulevard says that if you do this with friendly NPCs, you can, and once the combat is done, you can swap them out with a new batch of NPCs so that they're not warping in anymore.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
I think we should test that.
He says usually the player won't notice.
Let's give that a test.
Of course, have the limitation of a new spawn point for the NPCs, so it's not, they'll kind of like disappear and then reappear somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Actually, let's move on to the next one, shall we?
Okay, all right. Well, if you're willing, there's one other thing I'd love to show.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is something I did in part 2, and I think a lot of people will find it really cool. Okay, so I need a new. We're gonna go ahead and go with an NPC contact with us. I don't need a fight. Let's see here. I'm just gonna go with a generic. So I'm gonna actually have 2 versions of this. And I'm going to have 2 reach markers. And date it. Increase it to let's do 6. So I can tell them apart. All right, let's say, for instance, I want the player to go after a ship, but I want the ship to warp out before
they get there.
Okay, so unfortunately I have to given the same name so the player doesn't tell the difference. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the first one, which isn't doing anything. I'm going to have him despawn when the first reach marker is reached, so the larger of the reach markers. Okay, and then I'm going to have number 2, who's going to spawn at the same time.
You modern Foundry authors are so spoiled. We didn't used to have the ability to despawn NPCs.
No. I actually started the building part 1. I think I might have finished part 1 before we got that ability. So I did the whole hiding NPCs under rocks and stuff.
Oh yeah.
All right, so
several missions still make use of that.
Wasn't it Kirkbat who did a short tutorial on how to use a corpse chute to hide an NPC?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, so I've got my second ship that'll spawn when the first reach marker is hit and despawn when the second reach marker is hit. And I'm going to give him the warp out animation. All right, so let's go ahead and fire up the scenario. Okay, so there's my target. And he warps away. And he is not respawning anywhere. Which is normally what would happen is he would spawn like some 20 kilometers or so away. He would just reappear. But in this case, he is gone for good because that second reach marker despawned him.
Mm-hmm.
So fun little trick if you ever have such a need in a mission. All right, I'm sorry. You can now go on to the next one.
You now go on to the next one. Okay, so the next one is create a dialog that the player can close but reopen with the ops button.
Okay. Go back to my test interior here.
And have it kind of in the midst of a couple objectives. Just simple ones like a couple of reach markers.
Okay, so first things first is we're going to have to find a good excuse for the initial interaction. All right, so I'm going to place a pop-up dialog here. And let's see, throw a console in. So this is basically what I did for the comm badge puzzle I had in part 2.
Yeah, I knew you knew how to do this one.
So what I did in my instance is I actually had an invisible object. So I kind of conditioned them early on to say, hey, the ops button equals your comm badge. And so I just had a so the first this up. Attach it to my visible object here. And so what I did is I actually named the first interaction ops. So in the course of my story, I had a initial teaching them how to use this button, and then I had the let's see, what should this dialogue actually say? Say, what would you like to do? Or what would you like up with. And obviously, you could have it much more elaborate, so you could do it so that maybe the first option is different on the first try instead of the second one. Obviously, I'm trying to keep it really simple here.
Simple. We don't know the meaning of the word.
Okay, so to keep this thing going, you have to basically have everything lead in failure. But you'll notice that as soon as I do that, we get this guy down here. So dialog needs at least one successful exit. It is not going to let me have a completely impenetrable map dialog. But lucky for me, I am smarter than the Foundry. Sometimes.
Yeah, you can do the show hide things for map dialog button.
So I have what's called a system exit, which is my successful exit. Except that the system exit is set to never show.
Tricky.
So the Foundry thinks, hey, it's cool, he's got an exit. And I know, yes, but you will never be able to see it. I love that never is an option for when to show. All right, so we've got that going on. So no matter what they do here, they can never succeed at this dialogue. One other quick trick I want to show is, let's say, for instance, I want a different response the second time they go through. So the first time they go through is the tutorial or whatever the first instance is that they see this dialogue. And so nothing, and then I want on dialog prompt reach, and I'm going to select my very dialog here and select this dialog to be what triggers it. So this option will disappear when this dialog right here is accessed. And then for something, I do the exact opposite, and I don't show this until dialog prompt reach, that first option is reached. And then never for the go invisible. All right, so everything should be set. And obviously in an actual Foundry mission, this would be way more elaborate, and there'd probably be more options and stuff, and whatever you need a persistent map dialog to do. Okay, so I've got my ops button. And that totally didn't work. What did I mess up?
Just interacting with Zeronius Rex on Tribble, and she says that they were having some meetings today because one of the longtime cryptic programmers is leaving for another adventure, she says. So they were having lots of meetings to hand off, and she mentioned that he was one of the original people who worked on the Foundry. So
no, we don't want
whoever you are, whoever you are, farewell from the Foundry community, and our many thanks for setting up this awesome tool in the first place.
That's unfortunate.
I think I may have encountered this problem way back when, and I think it has to do something to do with there not being any objectives. I think it's a weird bug when no objectives occur. I'm going to make an objective. That.
Obviously, in a normal mission, you have several objectives that you're going through.
will happen is I think it'll just override. Yeah, it overrides. That's good.
All right. Well, that's how you make a always-on ops dialogue.
That
Very
your way of
useful.
saying we're running out of time?
No. But we can go on to the next one, right?
Give me a
If
second.
you're ready.
Test it.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so there's my nothing.
Does need some objectives to work.
And yes, you need actual objectives on your map. Otherwise, it doesn't quite work right. And then, of course, now we've got the ops button. And no matter what we do, it's always going to be there. Unless we give an exit at some point to get it out. Cool thing, though, is that all of the dialog boxes in this map can be tied to triggers. So you can have things happen based on options they choose in here. So let's say, for instance, this was basically a puzzle skip option, where they gave them options to make the mission easier or something like that, or increase difficulty, or anything like that. You can have triggers based on, oh, well, I want it to be hard, or I want it to be easy. Oh, I want to skip this puzzle. So stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next one.
All right, your next challenge. Should you choose to accept it? So one of the things when Taco started putting the space stations in the map is we got Earth space dock. And the first question everybody asks is, do the doors open? They do not.
No, because the doors aren't there.
Yeah. No, the doors are actually there and they're closed. But the interior of it is modeled. So, it does have the full interior. So here's your challenge. Create a situation where the player flies up to Earth space dock and goes inside.
Okay, that's going to be a little tricky.
I kind of have an idea of how to do it if you want to hear my
Yeah, I think I know how to do it. By tricky, I mean the
you got to get the positioning right.
The positioning is going to be tricky.
Mm-hmm. So what I think you should do is, you place one instance of Earth space dock. Place, I would say, a little, the smallest type of invisible object right by the doors with an interact there that despawns the first Earth space dock, spawns another one on top of the player in such positioning that they're now inside the space dock part. And I believe the elevation, if you do minus 3.8, that places 0 within the space dock.
All right, so the bug, I'm gonna have to kind of guessing on the placement of the doors here.
Yeah, that'll take a little trial and error with the 2D map like it is.
Yeah, several iterations of trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to use my smallest invisible object. Actually, I'm going to use a beacon.
Because you want them to be right in front of the doors when you do this, so that you know as much as you can exactly where they are on the map.
I don't know exactly where the... Oh, before I get... We don't have Earth.
No, we do not, but it has been established in Star Trek that there are other space stations around the galaxy that Starfleet has built using the Earth space dock plans. So they could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, they do like the standard military contracting thing and hire somebody to draw up blueprints and then reuse the blueprints as often as they've deemed necessary.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
We're in a second version of Earth space dock that is almost on top of the player. You said, what did you say the height needed to be?
If you keep the spawn point at 0, and you do minus 3.8 for the space station.
Hopefully I don't get them stuck on the central pillar or something.
Yep.
Okay, so the first one, the one we see from the exterior, is going to be not trigger until we do a component complete of beacon we placed. And you could do an invisible object if you get everything just right. But I figured beacon's going to make it really easy to see where I'm trying to aim for. This guy, you need to not appear until that component reached. See what happens. Just watch my beacon will be like 5 kilometers away from the space dock. I don't think I'm quite that bad, but
Once we get the object outline thing fixed, this sort of thing will be much easier.
yes.
Yeah, but when I made that case on space station thing for my New Year's mission, I actually managed to align the objects precisely enough by looking at the object outlines in the 2D editor that I only needed to do minor tweaks to it after I put it together.
That didn't quite work.
So, having working outlines is extremely good.
You notice the doors are a little bit off from
Yeah.
where you are, so you may want to rotate that.
And my beacon was too close. Back it up to here.
You're close, though. Of course, I'm seeing things a little bit delayed because I'm looking at the stream.
Yeah, I'm already making adjustments.
You're already making those same adjustments that I talked about.
Still not quite right, but
And of course, for our demonstration, it doesn't have to be spot on, but people get the idea.
well, I spawned inside. I just spawned inside the the central pillar.
Now, it's sort of weird
bit.
because the space dock itself does have a almost like a native interact thing that doesn't actually do anything to it.
Oh, is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, that's why you're seeing 2 buttons.
That's actually probably something we should report. But for
our purposes today,
actually gonna
and
rename
if you're
it
gonna do this, yeah, you rename it to enter the space dock or something like that, so that people know which button to click.
Wait, what happens if they click the wrong one?
nothing
I
to
Do
do.
they find themselves?
I don't think
inside the
anything
real
happens.
ESD?
I'm gonna bet you it's remnants of that special map transition they did whenever you reached inside the doors. So maybe when they disconnected, it kind of reverted back to a normal interact.
Possibly.
but we should bug report it. Hey, I got my doors lined up.
That you hear is the triumphant cheer of a Foundry author who has gotten something to where he doesn't have to adjust it anymore.
And still spawned in the central spire.
Getting closer, though.
Yeah, just back it up a little bit further. One downside is that I have to find something that has a much smaller reach. Because the button is showing like I'm still a ways out.
Mm-hmm. You could do like a small reach marker first and then spawn your interact object. Like an extremely small reach marker that says approach the doors.
Yeah, that's probably the best way. Because then it would be automatic. And I can control the area.
Yeah.
And I'm inside. And not trapped in the central column.
Very nice. So, for everybody listening, how far was the initial space dock model to the second space dock that you spawned?
Let's see. Roughly about 3 on the z-axis.
3? Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 is about the magic number.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to reduce down to like 2.5.
Get you closer to the edge.
Yeah, we get you closer to the outer door. I'm assuming you time those just right with a reach marker.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's all we have time for this show, but I'll keep these in mind and keep adding to them, and we will do this again. We'll see if I can stump you.
Well, there are things that are impossible in the Foundry. I mean,
there's been a few
that I've said, look, yeah, there's just no way we can do that.
In any case, why don't you exit the Foundry and throw up our contact info?
All right. We can be reached at email at foundryroundtable@live.com. We are also available on Twitter at Foundry Roundtab. Drogan can be reached at Drogan1701. Marker can be reached at Markhawkman. And you should really check it sometimes. And I can be reached at Greendragoon.
All right. Well, until next time, we will say good night.
All right, good night.